yeah, I think that'll be it. Unless there are any other further questions, we're ready to cook it up for the grand finals. Ratatouille it is. And in the motion, it's very exciting that reads this house as that chef would publicly reveal the existence of the raccoon prime minister to open this debate. Here.
Can I be heard and be seen clearly?
Yes.
Before I start my speech, I would just like to say thank you to Salim. I started debating with Genesis, then I prepped for 2 years to do my first WD series. But then it's time for WDC, and because of a few reasons, he can't be there. And I had to partner Salim all of a sudden, and this is our first tournament together. It's wonderful and prophetic. We're even aiming for an ESL break, and here we are in open final as fourth breaking team. I'm really happy we came to this point, and I hope to make you proud and to get you your first trophy if everything works well. Thank you very much. So I'm Desmond. I'll be the Prime Minister for today's debate, and I'll take POIs hopefully from opening opposition and from closing opposition. From opening opposition and from closing opposition for fair engagement. So starting in 3, 2, 1. In restauranteering, there are a few things that are very important. One, the person who is the main chef or the person who is up and above there that people look to have few things that differentiates them from other people who are like co-chefs or who are cooks or who are workers. One, what they do is that probably they give out the recipe for other people to cook. They do not really cook as often, which means the expectation that because you are the chef, it must be inborn and must be the best thing, that you must be the one who cooks everything is actually low. At best, these are people who are like the ones who own the restaurants where these things happen, employ people to work among other things, which means that currently for anyone who has any idea on how restaurants work and how restauranteering goes, people who are top chefs are the people like this. There's no real expectation that you must be the best at that instance or anything. There are a few things to hear. One, this person has risen to success, so he probably has a court of followership. He's probably being hailed as the best person who can cook to that extent, and also people love him and love the things that he do. The second thing, and very critical and important in today's debate, is going to be the framing on disease and contamination. Notice very well, panel, that these things do not happen. Why? Currently, there are people that serve in restaurants where robot serves people. So if you go to very advanced restaurants in parts of LA, in Vegas, etc., there are restaurants where they are so advanced that they're using artificial intelligence to make robots and AIs help in serving etc. There could be things like oil leakage, etc., that can contaminate the food, but they're able to get checks to make sure that these things don't happen, and then it builds the trust of people. There are other new things like elephant food copy that you've probably seen on social media that people take to the extent that it can be checked and make sure that this thing doesn't affect people. This thing, what is this to say? There are a lot of reasons why this sort of contamination and public policy like because people fall sick doesn't happen. One, we know for anyone who probably watched Ratatouille that the rat or the raccoon doesn't have any direct physical contact with the food. It stays on top of the cooked rat and yanks his hair and probably makes him do that. Also, if there was any sort of contamination, people would have probably started getting contamination, and you wouldn't have risen to the extent to which you are risen to, which means that a priori, if there was true that anything of that resource, that result actually happens, it would have probably have happened already, and this guy would have probably been taking down this level of fame, this level of success, probably wouldn't have been gotten in today's debate. The next thing then is going to be on context. If the person decides to out this himself, how would it probably look like? This is not a policy debate, we understand, but in a world where we have to imagine this guy doing this, we have to imagine the most intuitive way that this self will do this. We understand a few things. Like one, this guy probably has a cult of personality where people follow. He probably is popular on social media. He probably like Salt Bay that people admire and adore him a lot. He probably has some money or things to that regard. What should he probably do? One, he would appeal to the people's consciousness, like all the fake social media people does to us, right? To talk about how he struggled, to talk about how things have been talked to him, making something of a divination of how he found this magical rat or raccoon that helped him come to this extent, and he's been secret, but he's ready to open up to the people and people to accept him. Two, you go and see people like health check people or public health people that check things like feeding etc. to make sure these people know and know currently well that contamination doesn't happen and can help him in outing that probably you do it on social media and Instagram live or anything to make sure he has backing, make sure people follow him. He probably use the money he has to pay like bots etc, people who love him to like safe narratives, or oh, wow, we are happy, we are thankful for you for bringing this out. This is so nice. We are hoping that you are like that. Three extensions then in today's debate. One, the normalization of weird things in the restorative space, and how that makes things easier for this guy to meander his way into this. One, you've probably seen people like Salt Bay who use new and neat and weird methods of promoting their restorative businesses and things that they do, cooking in the outside in the open, which is probably not allowed by a lot of people, but people see these things as new, as weird, as innovative, new ways of cooking food, new way of making things more spicier for them to enjoy. You think things like innovations, such as things like the elephant poop copy thing, poop thing that I talked about, among other things. What these things do is that there's a normalization, a trend where people want new things, people want new ways of engaging with these things, etc. And this is a method that has become a trend that this guy can also buy into. Why is this very important? It's a trend. It's a thing that shows that currently people are moving to this extent, which means currently in the society where people like Salt Bay, etc. are getting so much popularity, it shouldn't be hard for this guy to permeate the space and make himself also one of these guys who look like this to that extent. Before I continue, closing opposition.
Come on, like, let's be realistic. If someone found out that you had a raccoon controlling your movements at all times, you really think they'll just be okay and happy and chill with it? You're likely going to get fired and lose your job.
Sure. So your engagement is actually fair, and that's what my second extension will do. Why it's better you bring it out than someone find out. OO, if any POI. Okay, no POI, continuing. The second thing then to talk about, which directly engages CEO's argument, is going to be on reputation and control of narratives and why it's best that you are the one who does this. Realize I'm not mechanizing a model or policy. What I do is imagine how best this person will do it and how he will do it in his own interest. This is the thing. You're very popular. That restaurants, I'm sure this is places in Paris or wherever that people like Michelin star restaurants that you're raising to the top. Probably there's competition. They don't understand why you cook meals so good that people even feel like going back to their childhood and things that only their moms can cook from other countries, etc. There's probably a lot of paparazzi following you, which means to say that people want to know your secrets. People are constantly questioning you. People are constantly taking pictures of you. People are constantly aspiring to be like you, like other children cooks, etc. People probably want to enter your space if you have as much relevance and as good as you cook, as people say. What is that to say? The epistemic chance that people get to find out that you're using a raccoon to cook is so huge. The problem with when people find out is how these narratives are going to be spinned. It's going to be spinned as a chef uses a dirty raccoon to cook. And self-engaging is this, like vilify you to make sure you look like a terrible person. What this does is that you do not have the control of that narrative. It's spin outside your control. People say it on your regard. You probably spin it in a way attacks you that probably wants to take you out of company. The competitive is in our world. When you probably come out, you probably appeal to these guys, make them feel like you. The good thing here is that you see now someone who's ready to come up that people accept, and the thing you are doing is good, and people would want to probably associate themselves with you. But at best, you are truthful. Even if people still backlash, people to an extent still love your food, still love your truthfulness, and they'll be there. The next thing to talk about is the guilt that happens here. Realize that at the end of the day, even if you are a best student and probably cheated to be a best student, there's always going to be that guilt that you are not the one. If you never worked hard for something and it's always you attributing it to that person, after all the external benefits that you get, before you sleep, you know you are not the one that is making that well. What is that to say? Always still haunts you. You are not the best. You'll probably be found out. When you bring this out, you're able to allay those fears and let those things go. At the end of the debate, this is something that comes. The issue that comes here is when the rat or the raccoon is said to be human-level intelligence. This is that to say, people are conscious of things that happen, because if you're human knowledge intelligence, you probably know things that happen. You probably have you are probably conscious of things such as people feeling guilt, people feeling jealous, among other things. What is this to say? You probably know that the chef has as much popularity, as much fame. Probably a rich with this level of human intelligence may probably feel bad, may probably feel you're taking everything, and may probably walk away from you one day and you get all that bad thing. If you get better, that is it. Proud to be Prime Minister and proposing today's debate.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister, for those very kind remarks. Just a gentle reminder so that speeches are not beyond 7 minutes. That very gentle indeed. And let's move on to the opposition bench. To open that bench, I'd like to invite the Leader of Opposition to speak. Here.
Hi, am I clearly visible and audible?
Yep, on both.
Fantastic. I will begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. 2 arguments in my speech. First, you are betraying the amazingly French lifestyle you have achieved for yourself. And second, you are betraying the raccoon, who honestly has human-level intelligence and I believe deserves a human name. We're going to go with Alfred. I want to talk about my first argument, about your prestige, your financial well-being, your general quality and ease of life. I want to start by illustrating the benefits that you have in the status quo, and then I'm going to characterize the unique harms you get after exposing yourself. POIs in chat, by the way, I forgot to say. Starting with the benefits then in the status quo, because note, you possess in your hands, or rather in your hat, a superhuman level cooking skill. You are likely to get a Michelin star if you do not already have it. Depends how much the plot of Raccoonie is similar to the plot of Ratatouille. You are a moderately successful chef, publicly successful chef in France. This implies a few things. One, in France, it is a very highly valued job. It means you have very tough competition. And if you manage to stand out among that competition, you are clearly very good at what you do, and you are afforded the prestige and honor of someone who is very good at what they do. Secondly, you are French and you are a cook. You have always valued being a successful chef at a restaurant and all of the luxuries that it affords. You have spent decades hoping and planning your life to get this role. This translates into, first, simply economic prosperity and job security. You get paid better than anyone in the kitchen, and you have the greatest potential for increasing and the highest ceilings, since you can open new restaurants that you will own. But you also have job security because Alfred is dependent on you. He won't want to go out and risk trying to find another cook to chef with. But secondly, this translates into social standing. More people want to be your friend when you're the chef at a successful restaurant, when you're interviewed on national TV, or when there's articles about your restaurant every few weeks in national journals and magazines. Maybe there's a French girl for you to paint. Maybe she introduces you to her parents, who go, wow, he's a chef, a successful one, and approve of the relationships. Maybe you just enjoy getting to eat the amazing food you have access to all the time as the head chef at a gourmet French restaurant, tasting everything. Maybe what you love is having a live-at-home best friend, like you are living in your own literal Disney movie, and your pet is alive and talks to you like Ted or like Raccoonie. OG, go as far as to suppose you have a cult of followers. This seems extreme to me, but you know what? Sure, why not? I'll take it. What are the unique harms after exposure? First, you just lose out on all the benefits I analyzed above. All of these things are contingent on you having that superhuman cooking skill, which you are going to lose. Why? First, you are admitting to breaking health laws. You are certainly not allowed to have a raccoon in a kitchen. You cannot keep working like this, pending at the very least a comprehensive change to the legal system, which requires support in Parliament. In the meantime, you have to also admit to fraud. You lose all of your credibility. You likely will get fired and never hired again because of the stain that your name brings. OGs say that you have this cult of followers, these masses who loved you and adored you. Well, if they exist, then surely now they turn their back on you. They cry out for your head. You must understand, this is France. In France, it is very common for a leader who disappoints the masses to be beheaded. There is absolutely no loyalty after you have finished your job and failed at it. They're at their 5th republic. But even if you don't get beheaded, you're going to lose your job. You're going to not be able to keep paying for your apartment. You're going to lose your social standing. You're going to lose your French girl. You're going to lose your free access to fancy baguettes and cold soups and medium rare at most cooked steaks. This is a horrible loss for you. There's no reason for you to do this to yourself. Humans are mostly selfish. A human who reaches the pinnacle of success in their field is not going to voluntarily lose out on that. Before I move into my second argument of how what you're doing is also incredibly dangerous to the raccoon, do I have a POI from closing?
Yeah, so just to be clear on the moderately publicly successful part, what this realistically looks like is being like, I don't know, like an influencer on TikTok with maybe like 10,000 followers. I don't think you're like nationally on like television in France.
You in France, you're moderately publicly successful in France. It doesn't mean that you're Chef Gordon, but it means you're at the very least at the level of the people in the Raccoon movie, and they have like national people writing about them. If you have a Michelin star, sure, there are hundreds of restaurants in France with a Michelin star, but there is still a high focus on each one of them. Note, your opening go for the characterization of cult of followers. You're going to explain why you're able to outframe them and us, saying this without necessarily knifing them. Let's get into my second argument, how this is dangerous for the raccoon. I want to mechanize the danger because the law currently doesn't protect raccoons, and you, Alfred, you ought at the very least respect his autonomy and let him expose himself when he wants to. But more so, you're obligated to defend his secret. You, who are exposed to his secret as part of a mutual beneficiary agreement that lets you access all of these wonderful benefits I analyzed above, and lets Alfred cook. You are not allowed to endanger that. Let's mechanize this danger. Because first, it could look like crazy fans who want to kidnap a raccoon and they want their own Ted, like in the movie Ted. Secondly, it could look like religious nuts who want to kill the Antichrist. Whoever's unmuted, can you mute? I don't know, maybe you are muted now. Okay, whoever's unmuted, religious nuts who want to kill the Antichrist, which is a literal animal talking and like human intelligence. Maybe it's the CIA or the KGB or the CCP, but mostly the CIA, who want to experiment on intelligent life forms, who want to study his mind until he dies in the hidden Area 51 lab, and then analyze his brain, who want to clone him like Dolly to continue endless experiments on endless versions of him, who will hunt down any intelligent raccoon intelligent relatives that he has hiding in any dumpster or trees or wherever raccoons live. That is what you are exposing him to. The CIA are willing to do this to humans for far less benefit. To American citizens, they're willing to do experiments. Good luck proving that they're not going to do this to an intelligent raccoon. But even if you weren't putting him in practical danger, he has a right to privacy. You're exposing his existence and reneging on your prior agreement that you had in good faith. You owe this not only to yourself, you owe this to Alfred. We win on both clashes. Happy to stand in opposition.
All right, thank you very much, Leader of Opposition, for those very fine remarks. And to continue and conclude OG's case, I call upon the Deputy Prime Minister to speak here.
Just to confirm, am I audible and visible?
Yep, on both.
All right. So I'll take a POI from either closing government and closing opposition in case you have any POI to ask, so I can just be fair engagement. Having said that, I begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. I think Prime Minister did a very good job by outframing the issue of necessarily you flouting laws and the rest of it, because the only reason why this person was able to be successful is because necessarily most of his dishes are oftentimes things that people oftentimes enjoy, and there has not been any kind of harming of it. So, but then second as well, he said that the chef is probably going to lose his job. 2 responses. 1, it's unclear why a restaurant will probably fire a chef who is bringing them a massive economical benefit, because you realize in today's debate, this person has a cult of personality. People like him in office, so people buy food merely because of the fact that this chef cooked that food. It's unclear why a restaurant, which is profit incentivized, would necessarily sack a chef of this sort in their company. They don't show you why they have an incentive to do so. But then the reason why we mean this is because most of their impact doesn't necessarily approximate most of the chef. We analyze 2 things, which is very, very important. 1, on the level of guilt consciousness that this chef necessarily face, but then second also, how we are better able to get this raccoon who has a human level intelligence to still be able to have a better relationship with this chef. Why is this very, very important in this debate? Because that clashes out most of his argumentation, which is very, very petty in nature. We say that this chef, currently speaking, even though he has some level of economical benefit or societal acknowledgement, is still not happening insofar as he not necessarily, most of his actions are not necessarily attributed to him. Why is this very, very crucial to him? Because insofar as you agree necessarily, most of the things he does is done by the raccoon. We are better able to remove that kind of guilt consciousness. PM analyzed to you than necessarily people will most likely go to find out because of the fact that he's popular in nature. People probably scrutinize his life in office of. What we do is that we are not able to salvage those kind of preemption or that kind of expose. Why is it necessarily good for the actor in of itself? 2 reasons. 1, we are better able to get the actor to be much more happy and self-fulfilled. Insofar as that guilt consciousness is necessarily out. That's why our argument on normalization is very, very important. When you now normalize the existence of this raccoon of itself, you are better able to get people to understand the reason why necessarily you are able to do that kind of things. Well, not necessarily. Acceptance is much more better in our world. Insofar as now it's much more transparent. The people necessarily love him the most. This actor is much more happier. Insofar as now he's better able to feel happiness, knowing that necessarily whatever he's doing to the public necessarily have been able to acknowledge the fact that he's done by himself and also the raccoon of himself. This is the most important thing to say because happiness by the actor in of itself is most crucial. Even if he loses his job, necessarily the idea of necessarily knowing that necessarily most of the things he's necessarily getting is not from his own talent of himself, it's a very, very bad to him. Second thing on his reputation, we think that this thing will probably be exposed. Why is that true? Because he has a moderate public figure. People necessarily know him on TikTok, on social media, rest of you, on national television. The reason why this is very crucial is because of the fact that necessarily his reputation is at stake. What we do now is that we now allow the actor to preemptively expose this kind of thing. Why is this necessarily better for him as an actor? Two key reasons. One, it's better to get better acceptance by the people. Insofar as now necessarily is much more candid about the situation of himself. People are most likely going to empathize with him because of the fact that he came out willingly to tell them the essence of why necessarily is better to go to shop. Comparatively in their world where it's necessarily exposed, that's when there's things like skepticism, probably people firing him. People will even question necessarily whatever is necessarily good. What we do is now that we are better able to salvage most of the harms that open opposition necessarily care about in officer. The next thing I'll talk about the fact that necessarily we are better able to build better trust between the raccoon and the actor. Why is this very, very important? The actor, as the Infoslide said, has a human-like intelligence. Necessarily has things like thinking ability, probably envy the rest of you. If you continuously hide this in your heart and of itself, this raccoon in of itself will probably get to build a level of mistrust. Why is this very, very bad for you as a chef? Because we think that necessarily your subsistence is oftentimes contingent on the fact that this raccoon oftentimes assists you in cooking. We are better able to do so insofar as you are now able to necessarily bring him out so you can share equal credit or equal commendation towards your success. The reason why this is very, very important is because building a long-term relationship with the raccoon is very, very important because that's where your success or your success necessarily rely to. We are better able to build a better relationship with this raccoon insofar as now we make him public, we make him available to the public to share a common credit of itself. Comparatively speaking, this actor is better able to secure his job insofar as now the public of itself have normalized the fact that he has a raccoon in a certain of itself. But then secondly, as well, he's better able to build a healthy relationship with this raccoon of itself. This is comparatively better as opposed to whatever open opposition trying to argue to you about. We think comparatively speaking, we are better able to get the actor to secure his job comparatively and also to have a much more happier life insofar as now most of the commendation, most of the accolades of itself is necessarily received much more in a very happier manner as opposed to him feeling good of himself. Last thing I'll talk about is the idea of the fact that you probably have some level of safety. But before I go into that kind of extension, I'll probably take a POI from closing position. Impact is two things. One, on self-fulfillment or becoming much more happier. And secondly, how you're better able to build better relationship with this raccoon. I've analyzed to you how you bringing out public in the face of is a very good thing, especially the fact that the raccoon has a human-like intelligence. But if you don't do that in the face of, there are other ramifications or repercussions that is oftentimes much more visceral in nature. As well, like that's the impact. I don't see why necessarily you make that kind of claim. What is the way into this debate? Two key things. One, on how you are better able to ensure safety. We think that currently speaking, because of the fact that necessarily you as a public chef in office of, you have a bigger clout in office of, you are better able to ensure your safety comparatively as opposed to the award. Why is that true? Because if you come up to the public about that kind of issues, even though in the interim it will create some level of reactionary nature, you are better able to subsequently be able to get a better acceptance in society. Why is it very, very important to you? Because you can now build a better coping mechanism as opposed to your necessary, like a unique talent. So if you're in a French society where people are oftentimes also chefs in nature, you are better able to form a niche for yourself because this idea of necessarily having a raccoon of itself is a special thing. If you make it open to the public, you now normalize the existence of this raccoon of itself, which is very good for you because you need the raccoon to be able to survive. But then secondly as well, you are better able to ensure that necessarily owner accept you as you are, and you are better able to deal with your customers, your restaurant and office of. This is a very important impact insofar as necessarily this chef subsistence necessarily rely on it of itself. Why do we win today's debate? Two key things. Our impact on safety of self-fulfillment is much more important than actor because you can have any kind of material benefit economically in office of, but the fact that necessarily most of the accreditation, most of the commendation, it's not necessarily something that gives you happiness of, it's a bad thing for you. We are better able to remove that level of guilt consciousness towards this actor insofar as him disclosing those kind of facts to the people in office of will give him a better living of himself. This is the most important impact in this debate. But then secondly, we are better able to co-opt with most of opposition's concern about job security and the rest of you by proving to you necessarily you can only have job security insofar as that level of secrecy that exists is now brought into the public and there's an acceptance of that secrecy. Well, necessarily, this actor is better able to interact with his customers and restaurants much more effectively insofar as now his special talent is normally within the people. Comparatively speaking, he has a much more sustainable way to have a much more economical life. But then secondly as well, as an individual, he's much more happier. The most important impact in today's debate is on how you make this chef happier. We've proven to you that keeping it in secret of itself kills a massive guilt consciousness. We break that deadlock in today's debate. Open government clearly to today's debate. I'm incredibly proud to propose.
Great. Thank you very much, DPM, for those very fine remarks. And to conclude the debate in the opening half, I'd like to invite the DLO to speak. Here.
Hey, am I clearly audible, visible?
Yep.
Great. Two things in this speech. Firstly, I'll talk about why life continues to improve for the chef on our side and why that's so critical, especially given the comparative. And secondly, we'll talk about why even in their best case where the raccoon becomes a celebrity, you, the chef, are left behind and life still becomes terrible. Before that, a bunch of rebuttal. Firstly, on the safety, I honestly don't understand why they think safety falls to their side, but let's flip it very clearly. The moment at which people know that you've secretly been working with a raccoon, you're the only one, and you've lied to the public, everyone from intelligence agencies to PETA to environmentalists to religious fundamentalists wants to track you down, figure out the secret, figure out what has been going on. We think that is a massive danger to your safety. Now, most of their case, and this is critical, is contingent upon this idea that, oh, somehow word is going to get out anyway. Three very quick answers to that. Because their analysis essentially just hinges on, well, there's paparazzi because you're famous. Firstly, you're not Madonna, you're a moderately successful chef. But even if they want to go with the you're really successful chef thing, fine. Three basic answers to that. Number one, you wear your hat. You're aware of where the raccoon is and how people are going to find out. You have all this motivation that we already analyzed for people not to see. So you will wear the hat when you're in public. And we think it works quite well, especially because the raccoon also wants to stay hidden. Secondly, it's so absurd that no one suspects it. That is to say, there might be people going around looking to see if a chess player secretly has a buzzer or a phone on him. There is no one looking to see if a chef has a raccoon. Even if they see a raccoon around you, no one thinks, oh, it's probably a talking chef raccoon that actually knows how to cook anything. So there's no way that anyone's going to figure out, even if they somehow see a raccoon walking with you. And thirdly, in the incredibly unlikely event that all of these things fail, and someone actually sees a raccoon, even talking to you or moving you somehow, look, there's not a single person who would believe this creep who follows around the chef and then claims there's actually a raccoon working for the chef, right? There's just no way this becomes public and that people start thinking, oh, clearly you've been working with it. And that basically cuts down 90% of opening government's case, because at the moment at which you can continue to live without this becoming public, life is great. Now, one other thing that I want to rebut is this claim that they make that you're just not going to be happy because you know it's actually the raccoon. Three things to say on that. Firstly, teamwork. The raccoon is not actually touching the food. You are still doing a lot. You are contributing to this. It's not like you're sitting there and someone else is doing the work. You still feel like you're a part of this success. Secondly, the raccoon appreciates you. You're helping him. You have a pact with him, meaning you're not selfishly stealing credit from someone else. If anything, you are helping another living creature achieve his dream. That is to say, you go to work every day thinking you are doing a good thing. You feel very good about yourself and allowing a raccoon to break barriers and to make it in this kind of area. And thirdly, look, even if they're right, you feel like you're holding in a secret. You love what you do every day. You have success, you have friends, you have all of that. Even if there's a secret you're holding in, it's still 1,000,000 times better than unemployment, which is the really likely counterfactual. We get essentially no rebuttal to that other than, oh, but you'll come out and tell people it's fine that I had a raccoon in the kitchen and they'll just be cool with that. French people are only cool with like creepy crawly things in the kitchen when it's the stuff they're eating, not when it's the stuff that's cooking it. Now, let's start with why life continues to improve on our side. So firstly, Yeah, the raccoon is not going to go public. For all the reasons Ayal analyzed about how dangerous it is when you're a raccoon and all of a sudden intelligence agencies know you can talk and you're just being chased, but also two more points. Firstly, he already lives the best life ever for any raccoon. He is eating French cuisine instead of garbage. Why would he risk coming out? Why would he risk telling people what he is? Also, just status quo, he hasn't told anyone. I think it's really unlikely. But secondly, just note, the desire for fame and TV appearances, whatever they want to tell you about the life this raccoon could live, that is uniquely human. Without the conditioning we've received from decades of Hollywood, we'd hate the idea of fame. We would hate the idea of people following us around, having no privacy, especially when life is so good already. There is a marginal benefit to being famous, but it's so deeply outweighed by all the harms, especially when you're the first super intelligent animal ever discovered. You are going to be tested to no end, probed and pried. You don't have human rights anyway. We think they're going to take advantage of you in a million ways. We think Alfred is deeply aware of this fact. Therefore, we think it's incredibly unlikely that he's willing to do this. Before I move on to my second point, yeah, go ahead, opening.
Okay, see, apart from the fact that if you steal African kids' works and present it, do not credit you because you do that. You do not engage at all with anything that we say on the manner in which you present this information. Because there's a difference when you are bringing this out and the analysis we give, and when probably someone finds out.
The way in which you present this information is really unlikely to help, and I'll analyze that right now. See, even if the raccoon becomes a celebrity, which we explained he doesn't want to do, we explained it's much more likely that he gets tested, that he gets probed, all these terrible things. But even if for some reason the raccoon can be successful, the chef is left behind, and this is an actor motion. Why is this? They try to claim, oh, but like coming out, you tell people in a sympathetic way. Here's how it's perceived. A, he lied all this time. He's been working in the kitchen when it's not actually his work. B, he let this animal into the kitchen. Now, even if we'd be okay with it if we knew it, it was a betrayal of faith, because this person was bringing a raccoon into a sterile kitchen when it was against the law, when he had no one's consent. People feel betrayed by that. Thirdly, even if, cool, the chef actually did it, all of the TV studios that want to promote the raccoon realize that the chef will overshadow him, that it is just not worth putting the person there when the raccoon deserves the spotlight, meaning the raccoon moves on to bigger and better things, and the chef is simply a chef who's not nearly as talented without the raccoon, someone who lied to people, someone who's not appreciated, no more time for POI, sorry, and therefore he just gets left behind. He doesn't have his job anymore because he's not that good of a chef by himself anyway. And lastly, he is viewed as having taken advantage of this animal. He is viewed as someone who kept this secret. He had a raccoon and told people it was his own work and didn't allow this animal equal rights. We think that people are going to be incredibly angry at this chef, but let's say you're not entirely sure, you're not entirely convinced, and look, I think we win top half quite clearly, but let's do some weighing. Even if both things are possible, what is the moderate benefit that they provide to you in opening government? Slightly more fame when you already have a good and successful job. What is the downside? The downside, which is also the likely scenario, is loss of your job, loss of respect from your friends and your peers, loss of the closest connection that you have to this raccoon, and the feeling that you betrayed this animal that is now going to be subject to torture, to probing, to testing that he didn't want. So, for your career, for your own sanity, for your safety, and for your best friend in the world, this raccoon, please oppose the motion.
Great. Thank you very much, Speaker, for those very fine remarks. And that concludes the opening half. Proceeding swiftly to the closing half, member of government to speak next and open the half, please. You're here.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Alfred, the raccoon, probably approached you because it was his dream to cook, so much so that he was able, or he was ready to risk it all at the beginning of his career. He approached this random cook, not knowing anything about the cook, not knowing whether he will be trampled to death, but just because he had that passion to cook and to share that knowledge and that, creativity with the rest of the world, which was the reason why Alfred approached you in the beginning. So we don't think it's appropriate for OO to just say that, oh, Alfred never wants that recognition, never wants that acknowledgement. If you're ready to risk your entire life to be able to get into a profession, it is only worthwhile that you deserve some level of recognition to it. The point of this like framing is that given that this raccoon has human level of intelligence, we should equate all the desires and fancies of this raccoon equivalent to that on a human metric, which means if I am a good debater, I wouldn't be happy to just be a tool for like another debater where I write all their speeches and everything, and at the end of the day I don't actually get the recognition or acknowledgement for my speech, or like, you know, whatever that is. The context of this debate then is very simple. 2 points of framing. First of all, you're a moderately publicly successful French chef. That does not necessarily mean you are in France, and that is the reason why we think it's more likely that you're, you know, you have a small online following, and that can be a cult following of like local of loyal followers online. Even if you are in France, that still means that you probably have like a small following online, because that's how a lot of chefs get successful. Just because being a chef, as OO also points out, is a very like, you know, competitive argument, or like it's a competitive industry, which probably means you need that online sort of like presence to be able to like, you know, grow further. The problem now is that now there's a degree of companionship to the raccoon that you have developed over the time. What that means is that you literally put your career in this little raccoon's hands, which probably means you know, you trust that raccoon to a certain level. There is a strong degree of trust there. OG does talk about the relationship, but they never qualify to you as to why this raccoon matters to you, or why it matters for you to like, you know, maintain that connection between the two of you. The point of being a chef is there are long, grueling hours. You're working in a kitchen in and out for like 18 hours a day. You're very lonely. At that point of time, your only constant companion was this raccoon, which means you developed an intrinsic level of sympathy for the raccoon. But particularly given the human level intelligence of the raccoon, it probably does mean that, you know, you do care about the plight of this raccoon. Second point, upward mobility is really difficult. Oh, sorry, POI, can you please yourself and POIs in chat? Second, being a chef is difficult. The upward mobility is really difficult because the market is really saturated. And so if you are moderately successful, you probably want to be more successful. That is like one of the metrics you should judge this debate on. Then what are the points? First of all, we think there's a desire for recognition for your friend. Why? In status quo, I do not agree with OO when they say that this raccoon is the happiest raccoon in the world. I would argue it's the worst possible raccoon in the world, because it is the only one we know of who has the human intelligence to be able to understand the amount of exploitation that it is going through. What is that exploitation? Just go to any restaurant at any time, the dumpsters behind it are full of raccoons. And what do these raccoons face? A lot of vilification, that these are pests. These are dirty animals that do not deserve our food. There might be like dead bodies of these raccoons which were trampled over by the restaurant goers or the chefs themselves. This one baby raccoon who was sitting in the kitchen cooking this amazing food was made to listen to all that traumatic narrative, but also might just see the body of other raccoons outside on the dumpsters when this chef might go on a cigarette break, which they probably do in France all the time, which means this is the most traumatized raccoon in the entire world. And it had no level of solvency because it couldn't react to it. You as his friend saw that and you think, no, the world deserves to know that not all raccoons are bad, and these raccoons deserve just as much sympathy like every other like being, I guess. So that adds to a level of like sympathy for other animals. The impact of that is just increased sympathy, right? Then the argument is, why will people like this image if you publicly out this raccoon? It is based on two ideas. First of all, we live in the world of social media, which means we literally grew up watching TV shows like Stuart Little or like The Guardian of the Galaxies, where you have a talking raccoon, which means it is already an established public phenomenon to have some level of like likeliness to these anthropomorphous, I forgot the word, sort of animals who can talk and walk, right? Particularly in a world where it is so difficult to be successful on social media, you need that unique factor to you. That is all fair. What OG requires in their case is the analysis as to why you as a person will be able to control your online perception. We tell you, given your moderate level of success and having some level of like devout followers online means you can curate your profile on Instagram, social media. But secondarily, something nobody touches, this is a fucking talking raccoon. Do interviews with the raccoon. The raccoon trusts you, you trust the raccoon. The raccoon is not likely to be like, yeah, this person is a really bad person, given that this raccoon also like enjoyed some level of success and companionship with you, which means at that point of time, you are likely to be able to garner more sympathy with this raccoon, given it is a talking raccoon. But secondarily, videos of cat cooking go viral all the time. So I don't think that, you know, the world is going to actively hate you. The world doesn't hate bad people. Like we all love Kardashians because they have done bad things, because we love the drama. But secondarily, even if you don't buy that, the alternative is far worse. We think your career is going to end if you don't out this raccoon. Why? OG tells you this idea that, oh, you will be scared that people are going to find out. OO is right to point out that maybe that's not the most obvious scenario. But what is most obvious is paranoia, not necessarily of being found out using a raccoon, but being found out as a fraud. Even if in Op's best case, you go up this ladder, you are the next Gordon Ramsay, even in that scenario, you will be scared to take your hat off. And given that OO points out to you that the chef industry is so competitive, you will always be looking out for other competitors who are trying to bring you down at any point in time, which means your entire life will be lived in that paranoia of being found out. That level of mental impact on your psyche comes prior to anything else, because you need stability and mental health. Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Alfred risked it all to cook, not to be a celebrity. If he wants to be famous, let him choose to come out on his own time rather than outing him and putting him at risk of losing it all.
I think that requires a higher level of burden to prove that this Alfred doesn't want to come out. The calculus you have to use, as I said before, has to be the human calculus. And I think any human would find it to be equivalent to like exploited labor when all their skills are being exploited by somebody else for nothing else. So you need a greater level of things to just say that, oh, Alfred doesn't want to be found out. But the mental stability of this person is extremely important. Secondarily, the moral guilt of accessing success when the raccoon is deprived of the dreams that he deserves. But secondarily, even if you don't buy anything, right? Let's say you come out with this. The whole point is, even if people hate you, they still need you to make use of this raccoon as a spectacle, because raccoons have like they don't have opposable thumbs. They will need somebody to cook, even if it turns into a spectacle, which means you as a person with the connection, established communication with the raccoon, will probably be the person now getting like TV show deals, becoming richer. So if it's success that you care about, you do get more of it on our side of the house. For all these reasons, we're proud to propose.
All right. Thank you very much, speaker. Sorry for those very fine remarks. Now, continuing the debate, I'd like to invite member of opposition to speak next. Here.
Cool. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. 1 second. Just give me a minute. Okay. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1, go. Panel: raccoons wherever they live, whichever French chef they control, are trapped under a system of no other alternatives. Opening opposition tells us this is a mutually exclusive relationship, or mutually beneficial relationship, and hence we owe some obligation. I just want to talk about what sort of person you are and why doing this action permanently damages your relationship with the raccoon, and why this permanently harms you going forward, and why this is the most important impact in this debate. Let's talk about what sort of person you are. You are someone who let a raccoon pull your hair. This means you're kind enough to speak to the raccoon, empathetic enough to let it hang out with you for a while. You probably figured out a way to communicate with the raccoon, even if it doesn't speak or it doesn't speak. You probably spent a lot of time with this raccoon. Notably, to climb the French restaurant business is not just skill, but experience and years of time you have spent working on this skill and making these connections. Notably, then, to also be a chef is to be alone. You spend hours getting yelled at by other cooks, constantly getting like attacked by customers, working long hours in strenuous conditions. Ayal says it's a lot of work, but anyone who has spent time doing that work means that you've given up a level of other things. This means that when your friends come out and say, let's go out tonight, you probably say, no, I need to go do my shift in the store. It means you probably spend time looking at home, working and perfecting on your restaurants, or perfecting your particular meals, instead of looking out and spending time with girlfriends, partners, getting to know other people. But it also means that you're probably unable to trust your friends currently in the status quo who aren't the raccoon, because at the point at which you're a morally successful chef, regardless of whatever, like to what degree you're actually successful, means that the friends who you're currently with, you do not know if they're true actual friends. You probably don't know if they're working for you particularly for your chef skills. You don't know if they're particularly with you for the clout, or if they wish to benefit their industry. It is also particularly hard to make friends outside of this degree, right? Because it means that you have to actually go out of your way to find someone who doesn't know who you are, but at the point at which you tell them and what your degree is and how much money that you're able to get from the chef industry, or even that you're to some level popular, this in turn poisons the friendship. Even if the other friendship is genuine, you are not able to ever know if that friend is either using you or not. But the raccoon was there with you throughout it all. This means that you've engaged with long conversations with it. OG literally considered it as emotions and ability to feel and care. This means during the years you've had conversations in private, the bedtime talks, the what are we's, but it crucially means that during the times of hardship, when you almost got fired from your job, when the raccoon made a mistake, when I don't know, you fumbled your chances with a cute waitress, when you gave up on so many other opportunities and time to get to this role and position, the raccoon is the only certain person who is with you throughout this entire fucking period. It means that, like, I want to know that people are able to imbue meaning and significance onto stuffed animals or pets already, but this is a human-like level intelligence. The raccoon wiped away your tears. It gave you advice. It was probably empathetic during this period, but it notably means that you care about it to that degree. This is why we can infer that it is against the raccoon's interest to be exposed without their consent, because notably, one, you probably care and respect for the wishes and wants of this creature. You probably have a level of gratitude towards it. People knit and get their pets very nice things, or people do a lot more for their friends. You probably have, like, I don't know, given like this raccoon a very nice holiday every once in a while. You've knitted it some really nice stuff, maybe surprised it with some fun meals for the really nice service that you did before. You have this interpersonal relationship and discussion of mutual trust and care, which is how you've been able to make it so far due to the unimbued, definite trust you have in each other. But this uniquely also means you probably have had conversations about it. How much do you want to be exposed? Do you want other people to know about your skill? Hey man, I'm worried that it is your actual chef ability and not my own chef ability. The raccoon's probably with you throughout it all, telling you like, no, you still deserve this significance. No, I don't want to be shown. I would choose when I want to be shown. You are still deserving and worthy of this praise. This is probably conversations that we have with our friends all the time, but with someone who uniquely is your closest coworker, your closest friends. These are conversations which you've had before. I'll take a POI.
Yeah, from OG. So the problem here is that you don't show how the chef living in paranoia, how by probably accident or perhaps this, they may still catch him and it will be far worse. But the issue here is this: our
Okay.
impact are certain
I'll
and simple and
explain that
approximate
later.
to the
But
chef.
it also uniquely
Okay.
means that this relationship is consensual, right? Because for it to have gotten to this point, it needs to be. What happens to this relationship when you reveal it? Firstly, the raccoon is betrayed. This is more than just some wishy-washy obligation. It looks back upon the years of time that you have spent together and feels actively hurt. You went behind the wishes of your closest best friend. I know a lot of government teams and a lot of debaters want to hide behind, but you just betray trust and you get material benefits. But I think trust being broken is much more damaging than that. It leaves permanent scars within the relationship. What are the two scenarios when you publicly reveal your raccoon? Firstly, it leaves. This is huge. This is someone you care and love about, you never be able to get back, the only certain friend and the only actual person who you feel as if he's your genuine relationship during this time. This means that when you interact with any other person, see any other raccoon, try to formulate within any other levels of relationship with humans, you feel levels and tangs of guilt for what you did to your friend before, but you constantly worry about what happens to him. You think about what happened to the raccoon. Is he being tortured like O said? Is he being like, I don't know, is he popular, rich, some other card? Is he happy or being fulfilled in the ways in which he wanted it to be because you're the closest and most proximate person towards him? The fear of what happens to your raccoon worries you day after day. But secondly, it stays, and this is probably even worse, right? Because your relationship is ruined. The raccoon feels lost, but it is trapped because you're the only person who understands it. But now it feels as if it's being used as a tool. Maybe you've had conversations about this in the past. We've had to reassure the raccoon that you do care about it. But now all the times that you've spent with it, you're unable to repair because you went against it. Everyone else talks about trust, but this means that when the raccoon works with you, it will be thinking about what you've done. But it means that every small interaction, every sly word, every, like, I don't know, full stop that is sent after a text message, or every meme that isn't replied to, means that you think about this. You think about what you have done. You feel the harm of what it is that you have done. You think about, what have I done to my best friend and why did I do this behind my back? You think about that day over and over. It means that you were never able to build that relationship, even if the raccoon wishes for the relationship to rebuild back. But then they tell us you're going to live in some levels of paranoia or guilt or like, sorry, you're going to live in some levels of paranoia being cowed out. But this doesn't matter if you get outed, right? Because even if someone finds out that there's a raccoon living under your hat, this doesn't mean that you have to abandon your relationship with him, right? Because you probably also had these conversations before. Probably you've also almost been caught out by the many hours that you've been working together. I'm unsure why you're likely to be more found out now, but even if it does, it means that when someone else calls you out, it means that you were able to justify this towards your raccoon. You're able to tell them, look, man, I have to do this, but it means you're still able to meet up with it, still see it on a day-to-day basis. So maybe, I don't know, have some level of relationship with it, even if you're unable to do these things going forward. But this argument is non-contingent about anything fucking practical bullshit, right? Because the debate is fundamentally about whether or not you feel as if it is right to hold this raccoon's agency into your own hands. Every impact on CG and OG is basically just like stuff that you can get if you just discuss with your raccoon, convince that it is the right thing to do. And if your raccoon wants to follow through with it, sure, you can follow through with it. I'm not even sure if any of the impacts are exclusive, right? Because if you just follow the agency as OO said, you're able to get it. But what uniquely harms that you get out of this is friendship and your meaning and your ability to connect with the relationships. This is so much more important than any practical material bullshit. Closing opposition.
All right, thank you very much, member of opposition, for those very fine remarks. And to conclude Gov's case, Gov, whip now, please. Hear her.
I'm assuming that I'm audible because people heard my
Yep.
POI earlier. POIs in chat, please. Unless it's like 550, then you can unmute. We agree with a lot of what closing opposition say earlier on in the member of opposition speech about like how difficult it is being a chef, the amount of time that you maybe have to like spend in the kitchen, that like you probably have a fairly close relationship with the raccoon and these kinds of things. I think there, Srishti largely brings up in her speech. I think we can agree on these things. What I don't agree with, though, is firstly, in terms of like, I think that the end point of closing opposition doesn't really make sense, because what they're trying to say is that we should maximize the agency of the raccoon. And by doing so, we make a decision to not say it, but also maybe we can say it if the raccoon says that we can or cannot. The problem with this is that we don't know, like we have to be able to like explain in this debate what the raccoon would likely want. I think that I think they do a good job in closing opposition of saying that you have conversations in which you gauge what those things might be, but at no point I think they reasonably prove what those things actually are. I think that opening opposition say that you'd like on this clash is that you like the idea that as the raccoon, you probably don't want to be famous because it's a human thing to be willing to give up your privacy to be to be famous and achieve the benefits from this. I think this doesn't work for a couple of reasons. I think firstly, to the extent that you're able to like understand like human concepts and converse and communicate with humans, this also incurs a level of human socialization in that you are aware of broader narratives or how people speak, the kinds of things that people value or do not value. So at that point, you're relatively socialized in a human way. At that point, I don't think that like being famous is something that would be like totally antithetical to what you like, to the extent that your best friend, as the chef that we're talking about, is someone who clearly desires a degree of fame to the extent that they self-select into being publicly successful as a chef rather than someone who simply just like works in the kitchen and doesn't really do much beyond that. You clearly see the merit involved in being famous. So that doesn't really work. But past that, I think when Srishti tells you like the real harms that are involved as like this raccoon in terms of like seeing what other raccoons and other animals who don't have that same perceived sentience as you, and the things that those raccoons or those other animals face are really, really horrible. I think that this raccoon probably understands the potential benefit it can provide to like animals as a whole by using its platform, by using its ability to communicate in a way that no one else or nothing else can, to highlight these issues as well. The reason then that like this matters, just past the incentives of what the raccoon would likely want, and to the extent that like I do think we largely agree in this debate that you care about what the raccoon wants. Past that though, in terms of like your unique capacity, and this is where we weigh against opening government, because they say, oh well, if I'm online, I can like, or like if I say this before someone else catches me, then I can control my narrative. But they don't really explain how exactly you do this. Srishti gives you a very good explanation about what this looks like, in that when you like run your own profile on TikTok, you choose like what kinds of content you create, but not just the kinds of content, but the kind of tone that you adopt within it. I think a moderately publicly successful chef probably has like, I don't know, tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of like followers on like TikTok or YouTube or something like this. So they're quite successful, but like the sphere of influence isn't necessarily confined to like any specific space. I think this is important for like how you engage with like, and if opening government are right in saying that these are cult followers and that like they're very, very highly motivated or like feel a strong affinity towards you as an individual, this is actually and we're bound to this frame. I think that part's fine. we're happy to stand over that. Because what this means is if you say that, oh, this is like my like raccoon friend and they're very cool, and like, you know, this is how we act, this is how we do things, the framing of that is extraordinarily important for how people perceive this more broadly. Because as Srishti says, it's like when there's other narratives that exist in society throughout, like it permeates in media that we should be like friends with animals, that we have pets that we ascribe value and meaning to, even though they can't, like their ability to communicate with us is obviously going to be much less than this raccoon. All of this is to say that you can probably garner a level of sympathy here. This is actually really important when we deal with the opening opposition's idea of like, oh, you'll lose your job and the law might have to, like the law won't accommodate you and you'll admit to having basically done fraud or done crimes or things like this. I think when you're able to explain what happens here, this is where we're able to access what opening government are trying to say about controlling your narrative. Because this is the point where you can probably, firstly, you probably get way more followers as a result of this, touching on the uniqueness analysis that Srishti brings in closing government on a member of government about like, you know, being different to other chefs to achieve a level of success, or being different to other people to achieve things on social media. This is important when we like, basically it means that you're probably able to garner a level of sympathy that you won't just be like that there won't be like the political capital for like the government to go after you, or for the health agency to look at to go after you. To that point, you're probably unlikely to lose your job in the short term. I think these things are probably likely to be, or even like the law can change, or they can explain how you can engage in this practice and still do it in a safe way. Before I move on, opening, yeah.
Alfred could literally walk into any TV station and become famous in a second by saying hi, but given that he chooses to stay behind the scenes and skin and cook animals, he clearly doesn't want fame or animal rights.
It's actually, so this might sound a bit silly, but genuinely, as a raccoon, it's quite difficult for you to just like walk into like a news station and be heard, right? Because you can like get hit by a bus on the way, you don't know where like it is, for example. Like it genuinely, I'm not sure why other people are willing to engage with you directly without having the chef as a medium between the two of you, at least initially. This is extraordinarily important then for when we consider like so yeah, basically I think I've dealt with most of the debate. But lastly, I just want to be clear about the impacts of paranoia, because note that this goes further than opening government, because it's not contingent on actually being found out. I think when you're paranoid about being caught, this is when like you feel a level of like imposter syndrome. You turn down opportunities that you otherwise could potentially take in terms of upward mobility within the chefing industry. I think that's really, really harmful to the extent that like, yeah, as someone who's like cares about their own success for all the reasons that everyone else says, you're less able to do those things and you just feel genuinely quite uncomfortable within yourself most of the time as a result of this. For all of those reasons, I implore you to side with closing government.
Right, wonderful. Thank you very much, Govwhip, for those very fine remarks. And finally, to conclude the grand finals, we invite the opposition whip to speak. Here.